Disclaimer, this show is for educational purposes only and is not an alternative for clinical counseling. Please seek a mental health professional for your specific needs.
Welcome back to Intake Talk Show. My name is Bertha Barrett and I am your host. And today's topic is around anxiety and stress and how to cope around the holidays. This is a very important topic because as a licensed mental health professional, I am aware that anxiety and stress increases massively around the holidays. But I want you to stay right there because the show will start now.
Welcome back to Intake, Holiday Edition with your host, Bertha F. Barrett, licensed mental health counselor. Today's guest is Cindy Ransom. Today's topic is about anxiety and stress during the holidays. Your Intake podcast starts now.
Again, welcome back to Intake Talk Show. And today I have with me Miss Cindy Ransom, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist in Orlando. Welcome, Cindy. Why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about yourself?
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me on. It's truly an honor, and I just appreciate it so much. I am a marriage and family therapist. I'm licensed in New York and Florida, and I specialize in of course, couples and individuals, but I specialize in anxiety and intense anxiety disorders such as OCD, and love supporting people in figuring out their stress and coping skills and anything that has to do with sort of self-care improvements.
I love it. So, Cindy, our topic today is anxiety and stress and how to cope around the holidays. I'm sure you are aware that this is a time of the year when anxiety increases significantly.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to tell the viewers from your clinical perspective, what makes this time of year uniquely stressful for many individuals and families?
Yes, this time is definitely a little more heightened for everyone, I believe. The holidays really bring a lot of pressure, really to feel joy, to be social, to host, to make everything look perfect. And when you add to that any disrupted routines or financial strain and increased family contact that we don't always get, it's basically the perfect storm for stress. Even those happy moments can carry a lot of emotional weight when the expectations are this high.
Indeed. I always tell people, believe it or not, I've never been big on holidays, right? I love the time of the year, the trees changing. I just love, looking at nature and how it starts to beautify itself for us. But when I say I've never been big on holidays, is because from my perspective, with living in Western society, but also at one point living in another country, Jamaica, I realized the increased attention we put on the holidays in Western society. And because there is such an increased attention on these days, people just, they're so stressed because you said it. You have to get everything perfect. You have to make sure everything is beautiful. The Christmas songs say this is the most happiest time of the year. And from my standpoint, because I live a grateful life, I'm grateful every day. From my standpoint, I've always had a problem with that because I'm like, why does only this time of the year have to be the most happiest time of the year when we live life daily? And so
Yes.
I think it's because of the traditions within Western society that we put so much emphasis around this time. And that's what increases the anxiety with individuals, specifically individuals who may not have family close by. Because some people only see family around the holidays. And that can be a difficult thing too, not to mention you want to be around family and you're invited to family functions, but you don't want to be around all family, right? Because some family members are stressful. And so you feel obligated to go to these events because, again, it's about being with family. But, we all have that family member who does a little bit too much.
Right. And I think also to bring into that point is there's this pressure to have a good time with them. And it to not have a good time then also must mean you're not grateful
Right.
or you're not enjoying the time with them. And that should be something to feel guilty of. And there's just a lot of underlying layers that come with reuniting with family members and just the past in regards to what holidays mean to them
Yeah.
and their, and their memories. So it's just a very intricate weave that comes along in managing the stress that comes with
Yeah.
it.
Indeed, indeed. And this is why I thought this topic is so important, because people are struggling. Specifically, again, people who don't have family close by, the spouse who lost, the wife or husband who lost their spouse. That is, some additional stress. People grieve around the holidays for those family members they lost. Like for me, my mother passed away maybe 3 days before Christmas.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And I remember, my cousin calling and saying, okay, I'm going to need you all to go have this Christmas dinner real quick before you all do this funeral, because you don't want Christmas to always be centered around her death. But what I realized is, regardless, we still, have those moments and we go, wow, it's been this, she's not here. And the beautiful thing was, my mother was a planner. She had already been preparing Christmas dinner. So we ate her last Christmas dinner on Christmas Day because she had already prepared it, froze it, prepped everything, because she was a cook. She prepped everything. And so we sat there and ate her last Christmas dinner. And that's quite tough around the holidays, because you just can't replace your parents, specifically, your parents. You can't replace anybody that, in your family or anyone that you love. But it's just a difference when it's your parents, right?
Yeah.
And so addressing that stress and how people can, decrease the stress is important. I just live a life where every day is significant to me. And that's how I manage the stress. Can I just say it? Because I still cook for my family. And to me, when they walk in my dining room, it doesn't say Happy Thanksgiving. It always says Happy Another Day to Be Grateful.
Yes, I love that.
And that's because of the way that I live, and I want them to live that way. But I understand that people do put a lot of emphasis on it. And so now I want to ask you, because I think too, we would be remiss not to address what people are dealing with now, in this day and time. Because not only is it the holidays, people are also anxious around global uncertainty, political tension, economic instability. And so that also, that's like a big whammy now on this anxiety and stress. Can we talk about that? What you've seen and how that has been looking for you?
Yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. I think that definitely clients are reporting more difficulty sleeping. They just report increased irritability and just a sense of feeling unsafe to relax. And many people feel a background sense of unease, like you touched upon. I call it ambient anxiety. We're constantly exposed to distressing news, and with that, our nervous systems they just never were designed to process that level of input daily, to just constantly have this swirl of ambient anxiety in the background.
Indeed, indeed. I want to make sure too that viewers understand how this beautiful body, this system of ours works. Because often when we talk about anxiety, people look at it as some impairment. Okay? So we want to make sure that we help viewers also understand that every human being on the earth experiences anxiety.
That's right. I tell my clients all the time. They say, well, I just I don't want to feel the anxiety. And I said, in my profession, the people who I have met who have zero anxiety are dead people. They have nothing to worry about. I said, but anxiety attaches to what you care about.
Right.
So for as long as you care about something, it's going to live there because its job is to bring your attention to it. It really does get vilified. Anxiety does frequently. And I remember I watched the movie Inside Out that Disney made, and they had the second one and they introduced anxiety. And not to spoil it for anybody, but I was very impressed with the way that they addressed it, because it really brings to light that anxiety really does care about the things that you value, and they just want to make sure everything's okay.
Right.
They just want to make sure everything is good with that. And so it's sort of like bringing something to awareness, but when it overtakes, when it starts to get much louder than all of the other emotions, that's really when we start to lose ourselves in it. And I think that's why it's gotten a bit of a bad rap. But if you're able to acknowledge your anxiety and recognize it and say, I hear you, I don't necessarily agree that it's this level of intensity, but I hear you, then we can create some level of peace with it.
Right. I'm glad you said that, because I usually tell people too, is when that anxiety becomes so heightened that it interferes with daily functioning.
Absolutely.
Okay. You have these overwhelming thoughts when you can't even focus on your job, all of that. You're always feeling nervous in your body. And so that's when it becomes an issue. Okay. And that's what we try to prevent by educating people on how to manage it. But we also have to give anxiety its props. It's props, because I'm glad you said it like you said it, anxiety cares. Right? And so anxiety is a good thing. I think too often we see things in white or black lens, okay, instead of just seeing outside of those lenses. So we see good or bad, right? Anxiety is good because it's that thing that helps you when you have these short deadlines, specifically with work or something. And now you're feeling it, it gives you that adrenaline to say, oh, I got to get this done. So it's not always something negative. It works for you. It really does. But when it gets to that point of always feeling nervous in the body, that's when you have to deal with it. And we're finding that happens often around the holidays, right? Because everybody wants to make sure everything is perfect, getting family together. Everything is perfect with the family. There is no, chaos. Everything is unified.
Planning the food, the timing, the arrivals, the interactions, the activities, all of it has to run smoothly.
Right. And oftentimes that can be onerous. Yeah. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to definitely talk about that, okay? So I want you to tell viewers, what is the most common anxiety reactions you notice around the holidays? And how are they different from everyday stress?
Yeah, I think the difference between everyday stress and holiday anxiety is that it's really amplified by the expectations that we were just talking about. We tell ourselves that we should be happy, which only adds on to this pressure. So the anxiety often shows up as irritability or fatigue or people pleasing. I can't have this, she's not going to like that. We're going to have to make this. People also tend to overcommit. They tend to overcommit. They tend to overthink. They tend to overlook their own needs. And that's truly where the holidays differs, I think, from the everyday stress, because there's just this added component to it.
Next, how can unresolved trauma or family of origin dynamics intensify emotional reactions during the season?
This is such a powerful question, because we all know that with trauma and our family of origin dynamics, they really do get highlighted. The holidays really can be triggering because they place us back in old emotional roles. So if we were the fixer, we go back to a place where now we have to fix. If we're the peacekeeper, we have to keep the peace. If we're the quiet one, even though we've lived a whole life where we've worked against being the quiet one, now we're back in this family dynamic and we sort of regress back into what's familiar, not just for us, but for everyone. And those unresolved dynamics resurface very quickly when those boundaries just start to blur. And I think that therapy really helps in recognizing when you're reacting from old patterns instead of present reality.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. I love the way that you just said that, because the reality is that we've all been conditioned in some way, right? And it's really about conditioning. Because what I'm hearing you say is, some people have been the fixer, right? I wrote a book that's titled Gentle Relationships, how to heal the things that keeps us from ourselves and from each other. What it's around is these conditioned responses, right? These conditioned responses of how people implicitly or explicitly condition us to play these roles, right? And often the roles that we play, these masks that we wear, is always denying the self, suppressing self, right? And that's one of the things that happens around the holidays, because now you have to go around family, you have to put a smile on your face, you have to present yourself accordingly, even with those family members that you may have had some stressful moments with. We have this thing that we call, sweeping it under the rug. Now you have to, put on the face and kind of sweep interactions under the rug that may have occurred and look presentable, and that can cause a lot of stress too, specifically when we're talking about trauma. And this is my key topic, trauma, because I'm a certified clinical trauma professional. That's my focus. And what I've noticed is holidays often trigger trauma responses. And we're talking about in adult beings who have to go around family members that may have caused the trauma in their life as a child. And none of the family know about it, but they go around knowing that this is my abuser. Now I have to smile and I have to act like I'm okay with this person. And in some instances, family may know about it, but family is like, well, no, we're still family. And now it makes the person feel like they're not worthy, but they still have to go around and show this face. And so I want to ask you, how have you seen, I don't know if you see people who have experienced trauma in their life, and if so, how have you seen that really impact clients with, of course, staying HIPAA compliant, because we don't want to tell everybody business, but how have you seen that impact clients?
I think that it's exactly like you said. Trauma definitely re-triggers a lot of those memories, and there are certain family members that could be aware, and they might not be. And it's really even not about awareness. It's really about re-entering that family dynamic, and it being like muscle memory. It's just something that this is something we talk about. This is something that we don't talk about. And this is the main reason why these family gatherings really do trigger anxiety, because they often bring these people together with this shared history and all of these unresolved issues. So the old wounds resurface and the roles repeat and the boundaries get tested. And in supporting clients, it's really about allowing them to prepare emotionally beforehand and making sure that they ground themselves and deciding ahead of time, okay, what topics are off limits, and really being in touch with knowing when they can step away if needed. And very frequently, clients don't give themselves permission to step away. And they say, well, I can't go anywhere because it's not allowed or it's frowned upon. It's like, but if you give yourself permission to go to the bathroom, to get some water, to step outside, to take a phone call, how might things look different? Because we're not going to resolve all of the traumatic issues over Christmas turkey, and nor is that anybody's intention. It's really just, this is where the saying comes from, surviving the holidays. Right. We're just trying to survive the day. But I think as clinicians, helping identify those things beforehand allows them to be able to at least step into those roles with perspective, some kind of perspective and tools, certainly.
Okay. I want to shift this just a little bit because I was listening to you. And this is key. Because the reality is that every time we expose ourselves, this is also about educating individuals. Every time we expose ourselves to triggers, all right, to significant stress, we put more stress on the nervous system, right?
Yeah.
And then that nervous system, it runs throughout our body, really. And so now we're impacting the nervous system even more. And when we suppress, we have to be careful about what we're saying to our subconscious, right? So if we were already made to feel like I'm not worthy and I suppress, because sometimes culturally, you can't go against somebody's culture. Culturally, it is inappropriate to get up from the table or dismiss you from around the family. But every time you do that, what is the message that you're sending to your subconscious? Are you not reinforcing that I'm not worthy? They're more important. So I really think it's about teaching individuals to be okay with setting self-boundaries. We talk about boundaries with others, but how often do we talk about setting those self-boundaries? Those boundaries that you set with yourself. And some of those boundaries may look like, okay, if I feel too much stress in my body regarding going to this family outing, I'm okay with saying, I can't make it this year.
Exactly.
Okay? And don't feel guilt around it. Or setting a boundary, I always say, become Cinderella. Okay, that's my thing. You set a boundary because we usually know, if you're with family for a good 45 minutes before that crazy auntie, or I don't mean to use the term crazy. Okay, y'all forgive me. Not crazy. But before that auntie,
that spirited auntie. She's spirited.
That spirited auntie or cousin does something, right? That disrupts everything. Within 45 minutes, something is going to happen.
That's all you got.
I say plan by 40 minutes. When they hit that 40 minutes to go, oh, it's been so nice. I love you guys, but I got to go see you. Okay? That's another self-boundary that you can set with yourself. So now you're getting the family experience, if it's not harmful, but you're also setting that boundary that I got to get out of here before somebody act up. And I know right at that 45 minutes, somebody going to do something. So 40 minutes, I'm out the door.
Yeah. And I think that it's so frequent that clients don't utilize their superpower of knowing their family members so well. And when I work with couples, sometimes I'll tell them, you can have an argument with your spouse right now and they don't even have to be in the room.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, like, I'm going to say this, and then he'll say
Mm-hmm.
this, and then I'll say this, and then she'll say this. And I say that's a superpower.
Right.
That you already know
Right.
what's going to happen, and you can utilize that to be able to tap in and say, like, oh, you know, I'm going to sit at the table and I'm going to grab those potatoes, and my mom's going to be like, you're eating that again, and then I'm going to say this, and then she's going to say that, and so on and so forth. And it's like, well, now you can use that superpower to catch yourself and say, you know what, instead of saying this, I'm going to change the cycle. I'm going to catch it. I'm going to do it different. And it really does start with just by clarifying when it comes to boundaries, what you need. And clients try to think about what can I do that will make them not? What can I do in order to make sure he doesn't say or she doesn't do this? And there's no power there. But if you're creating boundaries for yourself, you start to clarify what you need, just like you said, whether it's leaving early, limiting the alcohol, taking breaks, communicating boundaries with kindness but firmness. Like you said, you know, I can't make it, or I'd love to come, but I can only stay an hour. I can only stay for a bit because I've overcommitted myself again. Boundaries really just protect relationships by preventing the resentment.
Right.
Of saying, oh, and I stayed there all day, and then Auntie did have too much, and it was too crazy, and, you know, now I'm mad at her. She always does this. And it's like, well, let's make sure that we set ourselves up in places where we don't have to carry that resentment, and we can continue to protect that relationship, because we want to see, for the most part, we want to see those memories and recall those memories as not as tragic or not as bad. I can't even say happy with the holidays, because that's like the highest expectations. I want to have a happy, good, fun time. But I'm like, just aspire for neutral. You know, I just want to look back on this and say, like, it went well. You know, like, it was just good enough. And then if it's great, you can carry that to the bank. But if it doesn't meet that expectation, at least you're no worse for the wear.
Yeah. And what you said was key, because I don't think people understand, you're right, their power, what they can and cannot control. Right. And that was my point when I mentioned the book. I had a neuron moment there for a second. But that was my point when I mentioned the book, is that as human beings, often we need to learn how to be gentle with ourselves, right? Because I always say the most important relationship you will ever be in is that relationship with yourself. And most of us aren't taught how to do that. And it's important to re-parent yourself in a way, to learn how to prioritize you and be gentle with how you're feeling, your emotions, your thoughts, and knowing that boundaries are not a bad thing, because most people see it as a bad thing. Well, if I set these boundaries, they're going to think I'm mean, you know, it may cause a problem. When reality is, some cultures, some races have very enmeshed family, right?
Yes.
There is no boundaries. People are just all over the place. And so setting those self-boundaries specifically is key, because now, again, you start to talk differently to the subconscious. Now you start to reinforce your value. You start to reinforce, okay, that self-love, that self-care that we all talk about, right? You start to reinforce that because you realize that, yes, I do matter. And if this is going to stress me out, it's okay for me to leave early or not go.
Right. And I think so often clients will say, clients, friends, family, everybody says, like, well, how can I communicate to someone my limits and not create conflict? And there's this sort of like, I don't know how to do that without upsetting someone. And again, we step into their world. And the encouragement is always lead with empathy and just I statements. So an example is like, I'm focusing on reducing my anxiety this year. So I'm just keeping things simple. It's really not about rejection. It's about sustainability. Even within my own family, we were talking about the pressures of the holidays because we always host, and there's always games and food and gifts where we have what do you call it, like Secret Santa. We'll do like a Secret Santa, but then on top of that, there's the gifts for the rest of the family, like the regular gifts. And we were reflecting this year, and just like in the times that we're in, and like in the economic times, and as the children have gotten older, we were sort of reflecting in everybody's sort of personal space. They were just like, gifts are looking kind of tough this year because financially it's just really difficult. And we were talking about doing a giftless Christmas and what that might look like. And to be able to have everyone lead with those I statements, like, I'm really not in a place to spend this much, and or I'm really not in a space to be able to have this fall within my budget, within my my plans. And it does allow for more empathy in your surroundings, in your space, because now it can be a collaborative thing. So we collaborated, and we were just like, you know what, like, how about everybody bring one thing? That's the prize for the games that we play. So everybody's bringing one thing, and everyone will bring one item of food. And that's going to be the gift. And we'll stay, we'll still play games, and we'll still chat and converse. And we're all looking forward to it. And now there's less pressure about, like, what are we going to get, and what does she want, and I can't afford. You can create good communication with boundaries, and again, not vilify them, and think about it as, if I can create a boundary in collaboration with my families, not just like for myself, or it starts with knowing what you need, but then being able to communicate that, you might find that somebody else might meet you right there and be like, me too, girl.
Exactly.
And it could make all the difference in the world.
Exactly. I love that. I totally love that. And thinking outside the box and not put so much pressure on. Oftentimes, it's amazing because I was just talking to my daughter about this the other day. That as human beings, we take so much for granted. And just being appreciative of those family members that are with you, right there, and having that quality time to spend with them, not being able to go to work and have fun together, whatever that looks like. That's key. We miss that because we're so busy, moving through life robotically,
Yes.
doing things unaware, not mindful, but learning how to take time and be mindful. Be mindful of the fact that, I'm here with family, and let's just have fun and enjoy, right? Because every day can be a gifting, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's key. So I love that idea. I really do. And I think too, I know for a fact that does take a lot of pressure off of people. Because right now in this current climate, there's a lot going on economically. And people are stressed. Like next week, although this show will air after Thanksgiving, next week is Thanksgiving. And there are some people that won't have as much as others on that table because so much is going on economically. And the key is to take that time and really use it wisely to enjoy family and friends. And if you're invited somewhere, to go and still be in the moment without putting your pressure on yourself and feeling down that you couldn't do it this year.
Right.
That's key. So now I'm going to turn it a little bit, and you may have answered this, but we want to make sure. What are some of the early signs that holiday stress is turning into something more serious, such as acute anxiety or emotional overwhelm?
Wow. I think that when things become really, really overwhelming, it's definitely important to be able to identify like lack of sleep
Mhm.
is probably one of the big ones. Um, and definitely, if you're avoiding people,
Mhm.
if you're feeling emotionally flat, that's usually a sign of just burnout and anxiety overload. And we're not talking about like a little bit here and there. We're talking about like a tension that is consistent,
Mhm.
a constant feeling. If you're snapping at your loved ones and you're shutting down or you feel like you can't like turn your brain off, then that's about the time where it's time to start reaching support, similar to what you mentioned earlier, is when it starts to impair and impede in your daily life, in your daily process. That's about the time where you want to seek some sort of support. Well, even if it's just to identify what's happening,
Mhm.
to give it a name. I find that with my clients, it's very powerful to give it a name. I'll have people think, I thought I was just thinking. I thought it was just a thought. I was just thinking. And I'm like, girl, that's anxiety, or like, oh, that's depression. That thought, that's depression. Even just identifying it can be enough to be able to separate yourself enough from it in order to start to be open to the support that's being provided for you and the tools that can be, given.
I love that. I love that. So, with that, let's shift then, since you're on this topic of tools, right? What are some things that people can do to help them cope specifically around the holidays? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think that definitely some of the things that we talked about in regards to setting boundaries, but grounding techniques are really helpful. uh, like box breathing. I'm sure you're familiar with it. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. Box breathing is a really great coping skill. Uh, Anything that regards grounding, 5 things that, this goes into the senses: 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. Even gentle stretching, walking resets your nervous system. I think one of the things that I enjoy in regards to helping clients is creating uh, that holiday coping plan, and it's about like where you list your 3 triggers and you write next to them what helps you manage them.
Mm.
And it's just like, okay, when I feel like this, it helps when I step outside. When I feel like this, it helps to write it down. It helps to journal. Or when I feel like this, it feels good to just box breathe for X amount of time or to just set limits. And being able to share that plan with someone allows you to, somebody that you trust, of course, allows you to have some kind of accountability. And I really think that these are some really good coping skills to help during the holidays that, you know, along with all of the regular stuff that you're going to hear: drink water, eat, like move your body. All of those can be helpful.
Piggying back on what you just said, I believe it is important for individuals to find balance. Okay. That's
Yes.
the one thing that we don't practice, not even just daily, but specifically around the holidays. Because again, you want to make sure everything is perfect, whatever perfect is. And so finding that balance and knowing how to listen to your body, knowing when to sit down, knowing when to take a break. Because most people are decorating right now, they're going out and they're shopping to get that food, or, planning. But in the midst of doing that, listening to your body and going, it's okay if I just take a nap.
Mhm.
if I just soak in the tub, or setting yourself up so that when the holidays come, you're not stressed, you're relaxed. And that
Yeah.
requires now a heightened awareness around self-care. So that's what I mean, that balance, knowing how to balance, listening to your body and knowing, okay, well, dang, I feel a little stress here. My back is hurting, or, I just kind of feel frustrated, and really listening and going, all right, let me take that walk, or let me just sit down and rest. Let me drink a nice hot cup of tea or read a book and take my mind off of the holidays and just focus on me. I believe that's key too, because again, when you're used to just pushing yourself just so everything can be perfect, often you're not listening to your body. And when you don't
Yeah.
do that, yeah, that increases that stress. So I'm glad that you said that, right? Taking that time, practicing, but also, prepping. We prep for everything else. Prep for your self-care, right?
Yeah, it's so interesting how I noticed that people just, like you said, they just want to push through. And it is a skill to check in with yourself. And frequently people are afraid of what they're going to find, or they don't know how. They
Hmm.
don't really know how to name the feeling, name the what does it feel like when I'm frustrated? What does it feel like when I'm overwhelmed? And I think that in starting with that and being able to at least recognize that you need to take the moment to stop and ask yourself, just that habit, just creating that habit to be like, and how do I feel right now? I feel really
Right.
angry. Great. Anger is a secondary emotion. It is not a
Hmm.
primary emotion. So we're angry because something. Anger doesn't live alone. So are we angry because we're frustrated? Are we angry because we're overwhelmed? Are we angry because we're hungry? Identify that core emotion. You can do something about frustrated. You can do something about overwhelmed. You can do something about hungry. You can get something to eat. But if we're being able to just first identify what the need is, first we teach ourselves to stop and ask. Then we teach ourselves to be like, oh, now I address whatever I find. And that's how we start to build those bricks towards identifying what the self care component is that needs to come in to resolve. Like when I feel frustrated, now that I know that's what it is, what self care component do I bring in to address my frustration? And
I love
so
that.
it's just baby steps in
I love,
identifying that.
I love that. I love that. And so I want to make sure that we're really being impactful, because this is what this show is about. Bringing awareness not only to just mental health, but overall wellness. Okay. We talk about everyday life things and how it impacts us as human beings, but specifically mentally. Why? Because that's the part that we often overlook. you know, so I want to make sure that we're quite impactful. And what I'm hearing you say is not only beneficial for the holidays, but it's really beneficial in everyday life. Because if
Yeah.
we can find that balance in everyday life, that's key. And what I'm seeing, because what we have now is we have various things, okay, occurring. We have political stress. We have exposure to the news, social media because of this political stress. We now have this generation with social media where everybody feels like they have to be on it. They have to be on top of it, regardless of what anxiety or stress they're feeling. They just have to be out there on a daily basis. And now we got, the holidays coming too, right? And so you're
Yeah, the
constantly
perfect
trying,
storm.
yes, perfect storm, right? So you're constantly trying to find balance. But if people learn how to do that in everyday life before the holiday,
Yes.
then it's easier to navigate when the holidays. And so I want to talk to you just for a little bit. Let's just kind of sidetrack. How do we manage this anxiety and stress daily? specifically with social media. Because what I've noticed, not just with my clients, but I've noticed with friends, family, when I'm just sitting talking to people, how stressful it is for them to try to keep up with this social media phase that everybody's in now, with these, and I call it false because that's how I see it. They say Facebook is the old people's, section.
Right.
Right?
Well, call me old. I'm there.
So we create these false communities, Facebook friends, right? And just to feel like we have connection, or we go on Instagram and we try to use, because truth be told, nothing about social media. It's a free way of marketing yourself, right? But it just really requires you being consistent with it. And so what I'm finding is because people are now trying to get out there on social media, either to become some content creator or something, anxiety is like up the roof, right?
Yeah.
Somebody made a wrong comment on the post, or nobody commented on the post. And how did they look when they were out there presenting themselves? There is so many things that's going on now in this generation of ours with social media specifically, and trying to always look the perfect part, okay, because of social media, that it does cause a lot of anxiety. Can we just talk about that just for a minute? And how do people find that balance? Because that's key.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that one of the things that, as a stress specialist, I work frequently with clients on is digital hygiene and making sure that we are having a good balance, because we're inundating ourselves with so much digitally. It's not just information from our friends or even funny memes that we're looking at to distract ourselves. We're also getting our news there. We're also learning about people who have passed there. There's these posts, people who are sick say, I'm in the hospital, prayers, please, or people celebrating things. And so it's an emotional whirlwind of things that happen. And it does have an incredible impact on our nervous system. And the important thing to recognize is that our brains, they really don't know the difference between direct and indirect danger. So constant exposure to negative headlines keeps the body in a low level stress state. And over time, that causes fatigue and it causes a lot of emotional numbness. So in order to practice good digital hygiene, we do need to set limits. We do need to check the news once or twice a day, not constantly. If we want the news, but we don't want to be misinformed because that's something someone else said, because they're like, well, I want to know what's happening. I just don't want to know so much. Follow the journalists you trust instead of just doom scrolling, because the algorithm sees whatever you click on. It's just going to give you more of that. So balancing that input by intentionally consuming something positive on the other end, also music, nature, connection, gives you a chance to kind of say, well, I just watched some news on here. Let me make sure that I balance it out. But everyone knows that what they need to do is reduce their time on their phones. We all know that. The big pain point is that we do so much on there. It does entertain. It does. We do work on our phones. It does provide us information. We do utilize it to connect. It's our landline. It's like our lifeline to our loved ones as well. So simple things to do. The number one thing I'll tell clients to do in order to practice good digital hygiene is make your bed a phone-free space. Your phone is not allowed in your bed, because what you're doing is you're conditioning your brain to be stimulated when it should be rested. And the moment that you remove your phone from your bed, then eventually your body starts to get conditioned to like when my head hits the pillow, I start to doze off because your body just reconditions in that sense. Or to grayscale your phone. Take the color out of it. It makes it less appealing. You're not on it as often. I used to tell people set limits on it because you can put a timer and then it'll shut off. But everybody's like, I just dismiss it and then I keep going. So I don't even tell people that anymore. Now I'm like, set goals for yourself if it's something you really want to limit. Make your bed a phone-free zone. Be on the phone all night on the couch if that's where you want to be. But you can't do it don't get too comfortable with it. I even had a client once who was like, I really want to limit my time on my phone. And I told her, how about you can be on your phone for as long as you want, but you have to keep your bra on. And she was like, what? And I said, you can't take your bra off until you're ready to put the phone down. And she came the next day and she was like, the next time I saw her that following week, and she said, Cindy, you changed my life because that bra needed to come off. And I was done with the day and I knew how tired I was and I went to sleep and I said, you're welcome. You got to get creative.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. I think too, and maybe I can have you come back because I do want to talk about the impact of social media often on people because there is a lot of stress around it. You know,
Absolutely.
one time we used to stress about how do we go to college and get a degree. Now everybody is stressing of how do I become, a content creator or what do they call a social media influencer, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, now that's the thing, right? And so there's a lot of stress around that. But I think too, oftentimes, and I'm guilty of it occasionally, we don't talk enough about how people use social media just as a distraction.
Yeah.
A distraction
Absolutely.
from their own thoughts, things that they need to do. Because I'll find that if I have a busy day and I'm not a big social media person and I have a podcast, and I'm just not big on social media, and I know I should do better. My daughters are telling me, but I'm just not big on social media. But I notice that every so often, if, I got a lot going on in the day, for some reason, I pick up that phone and I start scrolling and I say, brother, you're distracting yourself, right? Then I go, okay, stop it now. Let's get to work. Okay? Because it is a distraction. So maybe we can have you come back and we talk about that because that is one of the stressors of today. And I see it, okay, in my practice, but also outside of my practice because it is
absolutely.
causing a lot of stress to individuals. But now we're just talking about the various stresses on top of the holidays, right?
Mhm.
And I'm glad you
Mhm.
went to, talk about that exposure, to negative, that negative exposure that we have to news and so many other things that we see on social media, because now social media is the platform that gives everybody a voice.
Right. Right.
And that means people go out and talk about, how sick they are. And oftentimes people are soaking that up, all of these negative things, and that does impact that nervous system. And we have to be
Mhm.
careful about that. Okay. So thank you for talking about that. I really appreciate it. Now I want to talk about what are some of the strategies for staying informed without becoming emotionally flooded or hypervigilant, because that's key.
Mm.
Everybody wants to stay informed on what's really going on because so many people are stressed around the unknown and they
Mhm.
want to know specifically, am I going to be able to really have the same Christmas that I had last year? Or what is the new year going to look like, come 2026? Is that right?
Mhm.
2026? Yeah,
Yeah.
2026.
2026.
Yeah. What is it going to look like? And so they're almost glued to the news, glued to social media, and now even influencers are talking about the news. That's their topic. And people are there just kind of glued to it. And it's just really impacting that nervous system. it really start to feel it in your body. So can we talk about some of the strategies for staying informed without becoming emotionally flooded?
Yes, absolutely. I think, as I previously mentioned, limiting it to, following the people who give you the information that you need, uh, not necessarily being on it so consistently. So, limiting the amount of time, being selective about the information that you are receiving. And I think most importantly, it's about just anchoring yourself in what you can control. So, being in a space where you are looking at your actions, your routine, your self care, finding those moments of purpose, whether it's community service or simply being present with your loved ones, just small acts of meaning really combat feelings of helplessness and sadness and overwhelm when we're so inundated. It
Hmm.
really does just come down to discipline.
Right.
It's just a matter of I always tell my clients to decide. And once they've decided, then it's all good. Because the first thing that they'll say is like, it's so hard. It's just it's so hard for me to stay off my phone. It's so hard for me to do and I'm just like, nothing is hard. It's not hard. Remove it. It's challenging. It's challenging to stay off my phone at night, but it's not impossible. I've overcome challenges before. I've been resilient before. I can see myself overcoming a challenge. But when you say hard, it just shuts you down. And it's just
Right.
like, oh, it's too hard. Therefore,
Hmm.
it's impossible. It's too hard for me to stay off my phone. It's too hard. But the moment that one decides, like, I've decided that I'm no longer going to be on my phone after the hours of 10, and you start to step into that role and you start to claim that, then it becomes very easy. I was reading a book, and it was interesting about the way that language shifts the way you show up. And it was talking about how people who identify as um, trying to quit smoking
Hmm.
are more likely to smoke again because someone might offer them a cigarette and they'll be like, oh, thanks so much, but I'm trying to quit. And it means that mentally they're identifying as like, I am a smoker, but I am resisting. I'm stopping that. It's not something I want. Versus when they offer them a cigarette and they say, oh, thanks, I'm not a smoker. I
Right.
don't smoke. Now it's just like this doesn't align with who I
Hmm.
am or the decision that I've made to not do this thing. It doesn't align with me. So I always circle clients back into saying, just decide. And they say, well, when's it going to happen? I'm like, the moment that you choose it, the moment you
Yeah,
decide. Once you
exactly.
decide, it's golden.
I love it. I love it. Again, what are we saying to our subconscious? I always say, and this is key, a professor said to me in one of my psychology classes years ago, that our brain doesn't know the difference between the truth or a lie. It only knows what we tell it.
Yeah.
And I think often people aren't aware of that. So thank you. Because again, it's what you're telling your brain. And when you're not clear, then the brain just don't go with whatever you say. Right?
Yep.
And that
Yep.
often influences that behavior, those responses. So that is key. Thank you for that. Now I want to ask you, how can parents recognize anxiety in children or teens this time of the year, especially when routines shift?
Yes, especially during the holidays, things are particularly difficult for they shift things for kids, for teens too. The first thing I would say to look for is irritability. That's tough with teenagers.
Hmm.
Most teenagers are pretty
Right.
irritable.
Hmm.
But I would say irritability, uh, clinginess, any trouble sleeping, or any physical complaints, like stomach aches. Kids really don't say, I'm anxious. They
Mhm.
show it in behavior. So being more mindful about the way that they're behaving, if it feels sort of off, um, like off character or out of character for them, just truly aligning with what it is that they're saying and some of their behaviors with a neutral stance. I think that it's important for parents to be able to, um, this starts with like that regulation, right? That self awareness. It really starts with being able to take a step back and assess your child's behaviors neutrally and not personify them or personalize them as this is disrespect. You are not listening. Sometimes it is, but first start off with neutrality and say, like, this is so strange that Jimmy's been having a stomach ache every day for the last 3 days. Does he really have the flu? Is it really a stomach bug? Or maybe
Mhm.
he's just really anxious about the upcoming break because, he's going to be traveling and maybe he doesn't like traveling, or there's a particular thing that's happening in regards to the home, or mom and dad are stressed out. And so being able to just tap into those things, irritability, clinginess, trouble sleeping, those are usually some of the bigger ones when it comes to anxiety with kids.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. And helping those children through that, right? Again,
Hmm.
we don't give enough attention here to children to really help them express those emotions and things that they're feeling without judgment. Okay, and
Yes.
that's key, without judgment. And we need to do more of that. Um, Last question, because we're about to run out of time, and I'm enjoying this conversation with you. Um,
Me too.
what final what final encouragement or guidance would you offer to someone who feels emotionally stretched in right now?
I think whether it's through the holidays or just regularly in life, just reminding yourself that you don't have to push through burnout to prove your strength
Hmm.
or to prove your love or to prove how you're feeling. Make sure that you pause and you breathe and you reflect and you just create those daily self-care coping skills and those routines to, acknowledge and ease your anxiety during that time. The first thing, again, I can't say it enough. The first thing is like giving it a name, like just acknowledge it. This is this. Once you identify what it is, then you can get to what do I do when I feel that? And then you start moving into the now I've got to do this, right? If you're stretched thin and it's the holidays or whenever, obviously, therapy can help you slow that spiral, help you find that balance again. If you're overwhelmed, seek support, um, and really just giving yourself permission. Just giving yourself permission to release, giving yourself permission to create boundaries, giving yourself permission to express gratitude, giving yourself permission to say that things aren't either or, but they are both and. You can both love your family and also be irritated with them. And it doesn't mean you love them any less.
I love that. Two things can be happening at once, indeed. All
Absolutely.
right, Cindy. Can you please tell the viewers how can they find you? For those who are interested in seeking therapy with you, either in Orlando and you said also New York.
Correct. Yes.
Mhm.
You can find me and information about me at my website, which is mybestselftherapy.com. And I am taking new clients in New York and Florida. I'm Spanish speaking as well. And you can also follow me on my social media at my best self therapy or even at my coaching, which is at volumeupcoaching.com.
I love it. I love it. And thank you so much, Cindy, for being here, for having this conversation. I hope to have you come back. Thank you for bearing with me with this cold. And
No, I
just
hope
trying
you
to
feel better.
thank you. But hopefully you'll come back and we can have more conversations, because this space was created for professionals just like you, so that we can have conversations, collab together, and help individuals understand the importance of taking care of the whole self,
Yes,
because that's key.
absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. And I've had a pleasure being on. I'll come back anytime. And thank you for creating this space because it's so valuable and important. So appreciate your time today as well.
Thank you. And thank you, the viewer. Until the next time, I want you to continue to talk about mental health and how to make yours a priority. Have a great one. If you are a professional or someone with a story and would like to be a guest on the show, go to our website, intaketalkshow.com, and complete the form to be a guest. Perhaps you are someone with a question or comment that you would like addressed on the show. Again, go to our website, intaketalkshow.com, and complete the contact form. I hope to see you soon. And remember to continue to talk about mental health and how to make yours a priority.
Happy holidays from Intake Talk Show, and thank you for watching. This wraps up our holiday episode with Cindy Ransom. Did you enjoy this episode? We'd love to hear from you. Drop your comments, questions, and reflections on our YouTube channel, Facebook page, or any podcast platform you listen from. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. The Sweeping It Under the Rug episode will be the first episode of 2026. It was an error on my part. This episode of Cindy wraps up Intake Talk Show 2025, but join us in January 2026 as we return with more thoughtful conversation around societal norms and mental health. Happy holidays and a very happy new year from everyone here at Intake Talk Show. Thank you for watching.